What's going on, everybody? We're live. We are live. Oh my gosh. Oh my gosh. Live. I think we're live. We're going to find out soon if we're live. Anyway, let's get this going. Let's get this started. It's the big thing. We're going to do a big spoiler heavy review here today on the big thing. And it's me. Yeah, that's right. It's me. Who else do you expect? Two finger toots? Nope. We got a lot to talk about because here's what happened and why we're doing this live today. Coy came in. We had a really good conversation. We talked about an hour and 15, hour and 20 minutes. And we just kept on talking about stuff with Doctor Strange, and we did a good job. And then I wanted to get some stuff on my computer. Wanted to clear it all up. And I deleted the file. I'm not going to lie to you. And I deleted the file. But the good news in all this was two things. One, at the time we shot that spoiler review, Winston hadn't seen it, and we couldn't figure out how to get us all in a room together in the last week to do it. So we said, all right, we get Winston back. So that's big A plus number one. And part two is like, well, the hell with it. Let's just do a live show. We'll do a live show. And yes, to prove it, Senior Nerd, it is live. Look at that. We're live. We're doing a live show. We haven't done it. So here's how it's going to work. We're going to talk about Doctor Strange. We're going to break down everything we can. And then throughout the duration of the show, we're not doing Streamlabs and we're not going to do robots, but we are going to do Super Chat. So if you send in Super Chats, I will collect them throughout the show. And at the end of the show, I will read them all off and we'll end the show that way. Yes, Felix, it is live. Just to prove to people. So let's do it. It's the big thing. It's me, it's Winston, it's Coy. Let's do it. Oh, that's the wrong theme song, but that's fine. You know what? Works for me. No, it doesn't. Welcome back, everyone. It's live. Yes, it's live, and I am not doing my best. I don't give a fuck. What's up, everybody? Welcome back. It's live. It's Coy. It's Winston. What's going on?
Oh, man.
Good intro, right, Winston?
Bro.
Can you tell it's live by the chaos? They don't see this side all the time that we experience.
If they get the friendly one that has the least amount of chaos whenever we normally do this.
Over under 75,000 times someone says, is this live? We just got another one from Bryce Turner. Wait, is this live? Is this live? Yes, it's live. We're doing live today. Now, how long we continue to do live, we'll continue to. We're going to see. I think that we're going to try a new structure here, and maybe we fell into something, gentlemen. Maybe we fell into something that if this turns out to be a really fun show that we decide we'd like to do live, then maybe we'll do live. I don't know, but we got to see. I'm going to do a. We'll do our discussion, and at the end of it, like I said, I'm going to collect all the super chats, and if we have enough of them that makes sense to continue to do live, then we'll do live. All right. So let's talk about this movie. Winston, I even though the audience doesn't know what Coy and I together think, I know what Coy and I together think. I have not really spoken to you about this movie thus far. So thoughts? Same page as us?
It sounds like it.
Yeah.
I will say what Coy told me I agree with. It is a mid MCU movie for me. I think that there were some cool things that they went for there and story elements that opened up that are cool there, but it was too chaotic. Sam Raimi for me. Yeah. It was moments like doing the essential star wipe where you zoom in on someone's head and they walk off screen and then the green screen wipes the next set piece. It's the I'll see you in hell and then firing like fire bolts and
yeah, I mean, well, that's the thing is that what I've noticed about this film, and Coy, even though it's been almost like a week since we did our thing, like you've talked about this movie a lot. I think you've seen it again, so I'm curious to see if your score had changed. I talked about it on my spoiler review, and I'll talk about it again. My rating of this movie when I initially saw it in non-spoiler was 3.5. It's down to about 3.1, 3.2 right now. For the same reasons, I think that it is it's a movie you should see in the theater. I think it is in the theater experience. I think if you're a Sam Raimi fan, you're going to love this movie. I think this is made for Sam Raimi fans. I think that I think that Sam Raimi's style overpowers the movie sometimes, but I think as you're a Sam Raimi fan, that's what you want. And I think that, yes, this movie is different. This movie does have horror elements. This movie, like, for example, like when Scarlet Witch is contorting her body ring style through there's some terrifying shit going on. There's a lot in this movie that I did enjoy. It was just some of the stuff emotionally character driven, Coy, that we've talked about, where I've had this debate with in my spoiler review where people think that Wanda had earned her heel turn. I don't. I think that, well, at the end of it, they're like, well, she got the book in Wandavision. So yeah, but you didn't really show us. And you had a great point about what phase we actually saw. You know what I mean?
So I feel like we got through like a 1 through 6 of her arc, and then this movie was 9 and 10 of her arc, and I really was missing 7 and 8. So what I struggle with is we've had this incredible pace, especially with Wanda. I would argue of anyone in the MCU other than the big three who've gotten their own movies, Iron Man, Thor, Captain America, she has the best gradual arc, the best journey of an arc, and the best unhealed turn, best face turn, because she had been introduced as a villain, and then we really got the empathy, we really got the understanding of the character. So to have her go back because of something like MacGuffin, like a book, I get what the Darkhold is. I love the concept of the Darkhold. I read comic books. I get what Scarlet Witch is. But if you're going to have a character that we've lived with for so long suddenly do a heel turn on camera with a visual representation from white to red that feels as rushed as that visual representation, that doesn't really get justified later on, that's going to hurt the character and that's going to hurt the film. My thing with this movie is that, and we agree, we're about the same, where it's like, it's a B minus. It's in the lower, it's below half and it's a little lower. But I love what it represents for Marvel as a concept, in that it is so director driven. And I think that is a net positive. So I think, like you just said, Sam Raimi fans are going to love this. Marvel fans are going to like this. MCU fans might not. And that is an important distinction. Those are 3 very different things. Yeah. And I do think that the comic books are represented here, but the MCU doesn't have what the MCU usually has as far as progression of tone and arcing 34 installment story.
It's a lot of pushing you forward into these big moments, like right away. Even the beginning with America Chavez and all that, like when you start out inside with Ponytail Strange and all of that stuff, like when you're there, it's like you're just kind of thrusted into it. But to jump back to the Wanda stuff, by the way, and this was to be something, because we're going to talk about these post-credit scenes. And as we both agreed that, and I don't know where Winston stands in this, but as fun as the Bruce Campbell scene is because for Raimi fans and everything too, it was kind of a wasted post-credit scene. And it also makes me realize that in Shang-Chi or Eternals or any of these movies, show me a Darkhold Wanda scene. Show me a Darkhold Wanda scene in a post-credit scene, because then I'm like, oh, well, wait a minute. If you saw that movie or a post-credit inside of one of the TV shows, if you saw the movie, that's where Wanda has been leading up to. So you probably had to go back and watch that, but at least you knew like one little scene. But Winston, anyway, so just playing off of this more so with the Raimi, right in the beginning, it starts off in the multiverse with America Chavez showing these Doctor Strange. What was your thought of the opening scene?
I mean, I know you guys were like, man, that like you mentioned to me, you're like, that opening scene is long. I actually did not mind all of that leading into
the eyeball scene, not the opening scene, the eyeball scene.
No, I was considering that all part of it, just because you kind of go from them in that dimension. Ponytail Strange gets killed. She immediately ends up running in the middle of the city, and our Strange is like, oh, I'm at a wedding. I should probably go stop this. So I kind of, in my brain, put it all together. But if you're talking I'm just talking about
from the second that eyeball shows up, when he jumps off the thing, like Superman moment, that was a cool scene. But then the eyeball was so Raimi that it's just going on for so long. The death of the eyeball was fantastic. But it just went on for a bit.
I didn't mind that fight. I actually really enjoyed that. I enjoyed the beginning part too. Like, none of that really threw me off. I think one of the things that immediately stuck out to me too is that Raimi does, and I forgot about this, he plays with color a lot. So this was like a much brighter toned MCU film, and darker at the same time when you get to some of those darker scenes. So it put me in the mood right away, and I was like, all right, I'm here for it. Like, I got really excited at the beginning of that.
Coy, so we talked a lot about I mean, we're not just talking about the negative stuff too. We're going to talk about the positive, obviously, too. In America,
There's
Chavez,
plenty of that too.
yeah, and she was great. She was great, and I think that what they did with her and the way that they were able to, I like that they kept her as like a child. You know what I mean? They kept her as a kid and with the pizza stuff and all that. So what did you think about her as a character overall?
So I think, the casting associate at 14 is genius because you want these kids, if they're going to be young Avengers, to still be young when you make them Avengers. So I really enjoyed that she felt like a kid thrown into chaotic circumstances. And I do think she had a very, very, she had a lot on her shoulders. She was all the exposition about her entire world. I do think that there were a lot of things that she was able to maneuver that a lesser actor wouldn't have. But at the same time, they didn't give her a lot of time to be a person. They gave her a lot of time to further the plot. One of my least favorite moments is they kind of use the barf technology in a really weird, like on the nose Deus Ex Machina way when it's like, your memories for a discounted rate, blah, blah, blah. And also they never had money. Where did that money come from? Why did they keep talking about money when they did? Little things like that drive me insane. Anyway, that is the most, I think, in like 4 or 5 movies, we've seen them go like, plot. And that really drove me insane when they're like, we just met America Chavez. We were thrown into a world of enjoying her. I'm immediately endeared to her because of the actress. But then you give me scenes like that where it's like, you've got not 1, but 2 people who can read minds. Why didn't Scarlet Witch look into America Chavez's mind and show us that memory? Why didn't Professor Xavier go, who is this girl? What is her story? Why didn't that happen with Doctor Strange? Instead, you've got some weird, like, Blade Runner cheesiness. And I love Blade Runner, but, like, the bad side of that.
I know what you mean. Like, when they showed up, and that was one, I think, a lot of people's big complaints was this movie is called The Multiverse of Madness, and there's very little multiverse in this overall, like, from the way that it was set up. And I pushed back against people because I saw one guy who was like, well, I think it's our expectations of what you expect from to be in a movie, and I think you guys might have just made this movie what you wanted it to be in your head. But I'm like, that you can very well say that happens on a lot of movies, and I'm not going to argue with you. But when you call your movie The Multiverse of Madness, and your trailers are about the multiverse and playing into the multiverse, and you're coming off of No Way Home that had a lot to do with the multiverse, you're going to have it's inevitable that people are going to be expecting multiverse.
This movie is, I think, a full letter grade higher, which is substantial, with 2 changes. 1, the marketing focuses and lets us know that it's Wanda, because we all kind of like, they hid a lot of Wanda from the trailers. Instead, they showed us all the things that were supposed to be surprises. Swap that. Right. Make it make the story that we're not even worried about the multiverse, and you can even still call it that, but make it about the Wanda versus Strange conflict, because that's not as big of a reveal, and you've got way more footage, and don't show the multiversal stuff. That way those moments do feel special. And 2, all you really needed to do was give us 1, and I'm not even saying for the cameos, I'm saying for the concept of the multiverse, land somewhere else and have the ramifications of Doctor Strange meeting other Doctor Stranges actually hit him in the heart. Throughout the film, I love the idea of I love you in every universe. I love the idea of the Rachel McAdams Doctor Strange thing being consistent. I love those concepts. But instead of letting us worry about what Strange would have psychologically, finding out that he is not as good a guy in every universe, instead the movie just sends him in like, guess I got to figure out how to be an event. Like, it doesn't, the arc doesn't land. And that negates the whole scene where they should have had Scarlet Witch stand before the Illuminati. The Illuminati should have been concerned about the Scarlet Witch as a Nexus level being. Instead, you've got Doctor Strange being tried, and then that would have worked if there were any consequences to that. At no point do we feel like Doctor Strange actually thinks about himself, except for the brief mention of his sister when he talks about his sister dying, and we realize that this Doctor Strange has more heart. And but that is one scene. No,
you're right. And it's also a matter of Reed Richards is supposed to be the smartest guy out there, and they're like, don't worry, we can handle the witch. Yeah.
Like, I get maybe she's smaller powered in that universe, but it didn't translate. Sorry, Winston.
No. I mean, that was the whole thing. I think that threw me off. The Illuminati, I'm not saying that they can't be short-sighted on things, but the whole point of the Illuminati, and I think that was what was kind of missed, they genuinely do have a tendency to be super on top of these Omega level events that are going to rock things. And yes, they tend to make mistakes on how they handle them, but they wouldn't be that short-sighted. They were technically right. If you look at the books when they shoot Hulk off into space, they were technically right that if you go too out of control, you're going to destroy the world. Because what happens? he gets sent off to Sakaar, he comes back and destroys the world. So kind of the same thing here. If you're, like you just said, Coy, if you're worried about Nexus level Nexus beings that can just destroy everything, how would you, and you know about the Darkhold, and he's like, yo, Wanda got the Darkhold and she shit up. How is your first thought not to be, oh, all right, look, we do need to deal with you, but we got to deal with her. Like that should have been the immediate response.
And this Illuminati have also dealt with Thanos, and they know what Thanos was going to do. You know, so it's like, and they knew what Doctor Strange was going to do. So they should take every threat as, even if it is Doctor Strange that's saying it. It's like, okay, well, they should know enough about the multiverses to say, especially Professor X, to say, there is I mean, essentially he does, because he's the one that lets him go. So he does know. So to be fair with that, but even jumping back with the Illuminati, it's and I think that Kevin Feige was even upset about this massive mistake by revealing any of them in any trailers. You shouldn't have had, and because Krasinski was leaked, you can't. There's nothing you really can.
I didn't hear about that. I actually got surprised by that one.
Great, but that one was leaked, so there's really nothing you can do about that when someone's ruining it for other people. But when it's in your marketing of all these different things, it was unnecessary, because you're in enough films here that you're going to get the audience in, that you don't need that, because it doesn't play except for that. It almost feels like just like a bit, you know. And I think that even though the scene itself is pretty rad when they're fighting Wanda, and you see how brutal, where she's like, it's not like she's not just going to knock people over to the side. She's killing, like Forkhead goes right away. Like he it's like the thing straps into, and it's so funny. I was like, yeah, she blew his head up. Like, no, she didn't blow his head up. He spoke sealed.
He blew his own head up.
Yeah, but she blew his head up. She was the one that said, hey, I know what's gonna happen here. Watch this. I'm gonna strap up your mouth. He blows his head up. She blew his head up. She was the one who did it. She was the one who said, okay, I know what is going to happen here. So she does that, wipes him out, because nobody cares about that guy except the people who watch that show. So he's dead. And then Reed Richards comes in, and you care more about it, not because it's Richards, because it's Krasinski, because a lot of people, he wasn't set up enough, and we haven't had a Reed Richards yet that, besides in the comic books and on the show, that you really care about. But then it comes down to both Captain Marvel, who's now Rambo, and Peggy, who's now Captain America. And these fights are great, and they both eat it brutal. And it shows there's no coming back from Wanda at that point. Like, I don't care, like, oh, well, like, she killed other people in a different universe. She killed 4 people right then and there. So it's brutal.
And that, to me, all I would do is swap out, like, Doctor Strange is who they bring in first. But even you have him in the containment room. Try Wanda, you get him in there, you trap her, and you have the same conversation you're having. And that way those characters not only get to be on the panel, but they also get entrances. So you feel more, it's more powerful, and you don't show it in the trailer. And then that sets up Wanda as the villain that the scene still serves the same purpose, but it also doesn't negate the stuff that they tried to set up with Doctor Strange that didn't quite land. And it's just one character swap. Obviously it's different blocking, it's different everything else, but like, it also allows for the movie to feel bigger instead of like, it's like contained, contained. And I do feel like I understand that the Illuminati are supposed to represent a different universe, and they're supposed to be more arrogant, and they're supposed to have lived through more things, and they're supposed to be more like entitled. I get all that. But what didn't work is that we haven't met a Reed Richards in our universe. So now our first introduction to a major character in the MCU is the X-Force joke where they kill him off. So like, it doesn't quite work as well for the narrative of, it works for the Doctor Strange 2 narrative. It doesn't work for the 34 film saga we're in.
Well, the stuff that did work though was that, I mean, that horror element was there. It was present, the imagery. There was some great moments. And I think that even though we all agree that maybe Wanda could have had a little bit more of a lead in to get to that villain status, when she became the villain, she was a great villain. And
absolutely.
When she shows up and she's floating in front of all the sorcerers, and there's that moment where she looks and she sees the guy and she's like, run. It's like that whole thing played out brilliantly. That lead up inside of to try to capture them in the first place and try to get the girl. I thought all that worked really well. There's a lot of moments that really work, and even the thing at the end when Strange jumps into dead Ponytail. And
love that sequence.
I was nervous at one point when he's talking through his mouth as a skull. I'm like, this is going to get really Evil Dead, and it's going to throw me out of it. And it did for a second, but then I snapped right out of it. But Raimi did that to me a few times in this movie. And one of the big scenes that we can talk about is that music scene, which the way that I feel about that scene when he's throwing the things as weapons, at first I'm like, all right, that's pretty cool. And then it starts going on for a while, and then it's like dong dong, and I'm like, in my head, I'm like, visually, this is very creative and pretty awesome, but it's a bit. And it's like not furthering the story. It's just going to look what cool stuff Sam Raimi can do now that he has even more money and now he's working with Marvel.
I think the thing for that scene, because I agree with you, I think the first throwing and volley, I was like, that's sick. What would have been dope to see after that is what other weird, strange, if you will, shit can they do to each other from that? Does the music all of a sudden turn to lyrics? Is it a situation where now he's pulling other types of things that are manifesting themselves? I think those are the cool things we enjoy seeing about Strange, because his powers really are kind of infinite. And so I agree with you. We lingered in that type of fighting for too long to not go into something different. So I think that's what I mean. And we all mean that by like it being such a Raimi film in that moment is instead of focusing up, you're focusing on your kind of style, if that makes sense.
Well, and I don't want that to be a negative and I think it doing well this weekend makes me happy. I'm so glad this is exceeding at the box office. I haven't said any of my positives yet, but there's plenty I loved. But what I love is that the MCU now sees the success of $500 million weekend with a director making bold choices. I just hope that the next time they have a director making bold choices, the writing allows for the story to work in the MCU and then the directing style to make it unique, because I would argue this is one of the most visually appealing MCU films. I would argue this is one of the most interesting style choices. Like there's a sequence in this where Wanda is about to do the walking, and basically you've got this awesome like 90s montage overlap fade with this really cool sinister music that's like somehow intimidating but sexy at the same time, which is Scarlet Witch. And all of this is happening and I'm like, this vibe is so unique and so special and I'm so in. And then later in the film there's that whole sequence where Doctor Strange like pulls in the candles and he like levitates up and then it's about to start into the cloak of the damned. Incredible. All of that stuff, incredible. And
you can't argue how visually it is a stunning visually movie.
And so I want those lessons, like those lessons I think are important for directors to get their freedom. After James Gunn, after Taika, after Sam Raimi, I want that to continue. But I think the Composer Supreme is a perfect example. The scene with the music, the Composer Supreme scene. I think that's a perfect example of how weird it is that we have so many moments that are that creative, but also others that are kind of short-sighted, because Scarlet Witch is now a Nexus level being that can do literally anything. We saw utmost creativity with this music fight, but then Scarlet Witch's powers are basically reduced down to like a gun. She shoots little like pew-pews, and like that's if you can do anything, why are you pew-pewing with your red laser beams?
Well, I mean, to that point, Coy, like some of the best moments that she was doing is, like you said, contorting out of vents and
the whisper,
and the whisper, the
witch
that Kristian mentioned earlier. Why, you're exactly right. You know, I don't like horror, but I actually was finding myself thrilled in those moments because I was like, dude, she's fucking terrifying. Yeah. I wanted to get more into that.
Well, that was the horror stuff, right, Winston? Like that stuff, that horror stuff. That and I'm interested to talk to you about that too, because you're not a horror guy, but like there was some pretty terrifying stuff here, and it showed you his producer, director. I thought that was very, very effective.
1,000%. And there is still some horror to be said of Black Bolt blowing his head off, of Reed getting turned into Big League Chew. Like that kind of stuff does feel like you're getting that ridiculous kind of horror element to it. But I guess that's the whole thing. I would have loved to continue to have seen that, because like the Cloak of the Damned with those spirits kind of attacking him, that wasn't really horror. It kind of felt campy. You know what I'm saying? Like if I had really been terrified of these things, like they were Dementors or something like that, you know what I mean? Then I probably would have been like, oh Jesus. And I guess that's the thing. There's not a balance in the scariness, if that makes sense.
For sure.
I always talk about how movies work best when you feel the punch twice. When you're watching Daredevil and you've got Vincent D'Onofrio that you care about and you care about Charlie Cox, you feel everything twice. My biggest issue with this entire film is that not only did it open with a brand new Doctor Strange we hadn't met yet and a brand new character we hadn't met yet, but that when we met our Doctor Strange, it's at a wedding that they rush through that should be very important with a character we have met and know, and then they live with characters we don't know, and then at the end of the day, we never get the emotional grounding to care about Wanda's heel turn, to care about Doctor Strange's arc into the whole metaphor of the knife is beautiful. The writing of let go of the knife, and he has to let go of the knife and let America Chavez wield the knife. He has to be the one through the tragedy of sharing his trauma, be the one to let go. That's a beautiful story, but that should have resonated emotionally and intellectually. And I never found myself rooting for anyone enough to overcome the individualized elements. Like, it didn't feel like an emotional landing for me.
So, what just happened? Emotional landing. Emotional fucking bird just flew in here.
What? Dude, guys, the studio is crazy over there.
The live birds,
bro, it's Wanda. Be careful.
Birds, squirrels, pugs.
All right, listen. Before we keep going on here, to let people know, we are doing a live show here too. I am gathering all the super chats. We are once we get to around 45 minutes, we're going to start taking the super chats. So we will shut them off after that. So make sure if you have questions for us and you want us to read, throw in your super chats now, and we will start reading them off. So just a reminder. Okay, so the other thing, let's talk about the Bruce Campbell stuff, right? Because I love Bruce Campbell, love him, and I think that if you're a Sam Raimi fan and Bruce Campbell shows up, you mark out, you go nuts, you get super excited. I thought that the pizza stuff that he did was great. The idea that I thought maybe he would even be Doctor Strange instead of the cameo, because Andrew Garfield didn't look like Holland and that type of thing, but every single Strange looked like Benedict Cumberbatch apparently. So
choice.
Yeah, and that scene again, showing the Raimi side of it, it set it up really well. Of what do you think, you're Doctor Strange? And sets it up like, okay, well, we know we're in some kind of weird multiverse. What's the multiverse? And then it turns into a Raimi and Campbell bit. He's punching himself in the face for a long time. It's funny because it's Bruce Campbell and it's Raimi, and then that ultimately leads to the worthless post-credit scene at the very end. But like, that's where I think the big divide is. If you're a Raimi head, you're gonna love that scene. You're gonna appreciate it, and you're gonna go, that was great to see Bruce Campbell. I love seeing Bruce Campbell. I just thought the story was sacrificed because of it.
I don't know. It was such a short little moment. Like, for me, it just felt like a fun, like, kind of cameo Easter egg. I thought it was like kind of charming in that regard. But I agree that, like, for example, I don't love that we only get like 2 seconds of like who America is. If we could have sacrificed that Bruce Campbell scene to get a deeper in-depth about America and where, like, her life. I get she told her backstory about her parents,
and her parents even return.
Show don't tell. You know what I'm saying? Like,
or a single mention of Vision. Like,
that was the other thing I was going to get to.
The one mention of Vision is, I shot the man I love through the head and I felt nothing. And that doesn't.
Viz talked about the multiverse. I know you care about your kids, but you literally made both your kids and your husband, and not one. Like,
and that line
I gotta find a Viz too.
One, she's too cold now to feel, or two, she never felt it. Neither of which line up for the character. So what is that line supposed to tell us?
Well, and speaking of which, and when you play into the kids, right? Like, this is a big debate with a lot of people that have seen this movie. I think you have to see Wandavision in order to really be not necessarily know what's going on. I think that someone said, I didn't see Wandavision, I'm smart enough to tell what's going on. It's not the point. Point is not to tell whether or not you know what's going on. The point is, you will be more emotionally attached to this for a lot of different reasons, because anytime you're spending more time with a character and you are with them more to learn more about who they are, their essence, all of that, you're going to be more attached. But this even more so, because you wouldn't know how those kids were created. You wouldn't know what was happening with those kids at all. I thought the relationship with her kids was, because you had more time to deal with it in the series, was way more effective than it was in this. So that's why I think WandaVision was it's imperative to have watched it. So when Kevin Feige's like, nah, you don't have to watch the show, I don't agree with him on that one. I think you have to watch it.
It's interesting because I feel like there's two reasons people watch these movies. And one of them is for the grand sweeping story with the characters, and the other is for the action. And I think that people that wanted action got it. And I'm really glad it's doing well. And I really think it is some of the best action. But I think that people that want an emotional furthering of a saga, we're going to feel let down. And I think we all wanted, I think we're seeing this as a piece of the TV show that is the Marvel Cinematic Universe. And we're feeling like, hey, I could have used another 20, 30 minutes and I could have gotten my cake and eaten it too, which is what you do with cake.
I gotta ask y'all a question real quick. I gotta ask y'all a question just about how things were handled. We were talking about the Illuminati earlier. What did y'all think about the about Professor X and how that whole thing played out?
In the sense of the reveal, or how they offed him?
How they offed him, because I have a funny story about that.
Winston, you feel like you went out like a bitch.
But see, I actually enjoyed that because there is this really funny video that I will share with y'all. It's about 90 seconds of Professor X trying to do things and getting his ass whooped and screaming. So it was like, I, Professor Charles Xavier, bind you with the power of... Like, it's just nonstop of how he got bitched around in the animated series. So for me, I don't know if Raimi saw that, but I thought that was some sort of little cameo.
It's the X-Men series music that plays when he walks out.
Right, I love that. That was that's one of my favorite needle drops ever.
So so who knows? Maybe it was, but let's not, as much as we can say that it's Raimi style. Raimi's a comic book fan. Raimi understands all these things. He's not just making movies to put superheroes on. He's doing it because he loves these things also. And you got to give, like, whether you like his style or not. And so those types of things that he puts in there, he does it for a reason.
And that scene on the alternate Thanos death scene, that is straight out of a comic book. That was so cool to see when they pull back and it's all the heroes, and Reed is holding the other cloak of levitation, which they later used to patch our cloak of levitation, when they've got like Black Bolt over here. And like that whole setup, that felt like purely like, I felt like I flipped a page open. And I gotta give love to Sam and Michael Waldron for giving up those moments. I just wish we'd had a few moments in between those moments where we could have gotten to appreciate the characters in those moments.
Right.
And I feel the same about Spider-Man sometimes, we rewatched all the Spider-Man movies. I think a lot of the issues we all had with the portrayal of Tobey Maguire's Spider-Man are now kind of some of the things that are coming through with this Doctor Strange, in that it doesn't quite translate for the story. It doesn't quite translate to the character. It doesn't, like, it's almost, and that almost is a big difference between characterizations, especially with Wanda and here. And that's a big change.
Winston?
No, I mean, I think that's the other thing that's so interesting. I saw somebody just post a comment that I wish they had brought in Jacques Schaefer from WandaVision to consult. And if they did, I don't feel like they maybe did. He got to consult as much as need be to kind of keep that consistency.
It's a sheet, short for Jacqueline.
My apologies. I didn't.
Gotcha.
I thought it was like French Jacques. Like,
I said for years, then met her.
Oh, well, then there you go. So I think bringing her in, and I'm sure that she probably was at some point, because like Feige makes that pretty clear that they do. But I do that kind of crossover. But I wish that there had been more, I guess, just to make sure that we had like kind of organically gone into this. But I don't know. That's yeah.
Yeah.
Well, apparently they also, like, Sam didn't even watch all of WandaVision. Like, they gave him notes, and like that to me is really. And you guys know I love Sam. Like, this isn't coming from a place of scorn. It's coming from a place of like, this is a continuing story. This is a bigger thing. And Sam's used to making a trilogy of his movies. Sam's used to making. So I just feel like
he's old school, and he's old school. How important is the TV?
Those conversations maybe should have been different conversations.
Agreed. There's also the stuff that we haven't talked about yet, like with Wong. Wong was great. Is always great.
Always.
And when I think that the character stuff that maybe was missing and other things, it's certainly been there for so long because of the context that we've had with Wong and Strange, and just their dynamic in this, and that he's Sorcerer Supreme by default in Strange's mind, and then they have these you should bow. I don't need to bow, but he doesn't give him a hard time for really doing it, except like kind of breaking balls. And then by the end of it, they set this moment up. I thought Wong was great. But what did you think at overall, Winston, on Wong in this one?
I thought Wong was awesome. I think I was really contemplating how the hell he survived that fall, because he definitely fell like a few like stories onto that rock bed. And so I was just very curious. I was like, nah, you just wake up and you good, dog? Like,
he fell conveniently.
Yeah, he really did.
He threw a pillow spell out right at the very end.
At the very last second, he hit what's it called? Featherfall in Dungeons and Dragons. But I think the thing that you bring up, Wong, that kind of reminds me, I hated that the Guardians of Wundagore went out like bitches in 2 seconds. Was like they were
Oh,
waiting,
right.
like these evil ass dudes, like they're gonna. I'm like, oh shit, this is gonna be a fight, and then it's one to the jaw, and then just the cloak knocking the rest of them, and I was like, that's it, like come on. So I don't know. Thinking about Wong brought me back to that. But he's, you know, Benedict Wong is a fantastic actor, and every time he steps into that character's shoes, he kills it. So
Yeah, it's great. And so the other thing that it's funny because this back and forth and this longer conversation is I was shocked how little What If had to do with anything.
The zombie Wanda that was teased as a different character, and I love that the oil kept us
Same
in
with
an
the zombie
MPAA. That was
Strange.
clever. But
Same.
Zombie Strange, we just met, brand new character. The Supreme Strange wasn't the one in the house. It was just another Strange that caused an incursion.
Yeah.
They gave
that's
us
what
all
I
these
was gonna
teases.
check.
It's different Strange.
That's what I was like, I am pretty sure, because some people tried to be like, no, that's the What If one. I'm like, nah, because remember the last thing he was charged to do by the Watcher was to keep an eye on goddamn it, Killmonger and Zola.
And he's
He
in a
was
pocket
literally-
dimension, like it's a
Right.
separate, yeah.
Right.
And they could have had that be a moment, and it was really interesting how they chose not to
No,
with
none of
all
it.
three of those characters.
And well, someone brought up, well, what about the Peggy Carter thing? I mean, we just know in many multiverses that Peggy Carter
Right.
became
Agent
Captain
Carter,
America.
and it's a different
Right.
costume. It's slightly different, and in the comics, she's got a slightly different costume, which implies that there's just multiversal options of Captain Carter.
Right. So that was, and even the Ultron bots and all that, I thought was going to play so much more into it, and it just didn't. It didn't really relate at all. And I thought out of all, Loki didn't tie in.
TVA wasn't at all.
Oh,
And what's interesting is
crazy.
this movie is so many. I feel like I'm just crashing, but the movie has so many great scenes. There are a lot of, and I give it a B. Like a B is fairly high. If this was a not Marvel film, a B would be high on the overall scale of film. Like if you look at movies, B is good. But in the MCU, it's so consistent, it does feel lower. That being said, the scenes don't feel like it adds up to a complete quilt. I feel like I've got a lot of patches of a quilt, and the total tapestry that is the quilt is missing some pieces, so that blanket's useless, because then my feet are going to be cold. And like that's really hard, because I feel like I love some of the ornate line work, and I love some of the color choices, and I love some of the running out of quip metaphors, but like it doesn't add up to something that feels as cohesive as one would assume after this many rewrites, after this much editing, after the 6 weeks of reshoots. And then that's really hard to justify.
Agreed. All right. So let everybody know that we got 10 minutes before we're going to shut the super chats off and start reading them. So you have 10 more minutes to send in any questions of maybe things that we didn't cover that you want us to cover, that you want us to kind of dive deep into. You got 10 minutes before we shut the super chats off and then start asking the questions that everybody's been asking thus far leading up to it. But the post-credit scenes, I really like the first one because the Charlize Theron one, it's funny. I really like it, but at the same time, I'm like, well, they shouldn't have ended the movie the way they did, because
they undermined the last moment of that was so cool. Like that was such an intense, like, what's going to happen? Oh, he's going to blink.
Yeah, right. Because this whole movie is about how every other Strange had to answer for their consequence and had to figure, like, tried to cheat the system and do it. He cheated the system, but to do it for good, our version, but he still had to pay. And then, so when he drops down in this horrific moment in the eye, you're like, oh my God, how's he going to handle this? Like, oh, don't worry. He handles it pretty quick. How do I know? Oh, watch this scene.
And in the comics, the weight of the cost of magic is so high that at one point there's a storyline where he's got a bunch of sentient beings chained up in his basement, and he's basically got people that he's distributing his cost to, and it's like terrifying and tragic. You need that cost to make the magic work, and they allude to it. And then he's like, "Oh, I just now, like that's it. Like I'm good.
Like, check this out. I know how to do this. I this is a parlor trick that now. Check this out." And it's like, oh no. And then, but that scene itself was really good. I enjoyed, because I had to ask Corey, like, who the hell is that besides being Charlize Theron? Like, and she's with Dormammu's sister or something.
It's sometimes niece, sometimes daughter. It's Clea, who's a fellow sorcerer, and she's very powerful. And it's a love interest, right?
And jumping back and forth, which I liked, and I think that makes sense. And to get her involved, I dug that, and that plays into Doctor Strange 3, I assume.
And also like maybe more galaxy jumping, maybe more multiversal stuff, because it opened the door to Dormammu. But what I'm curious about is how they tie in the TVA split with the multiverse split with the No Way Home. Like, there's a lot of multiversal cataclysmic events
right now. Do you think? Is it?
I think Secret Wars is going to solve it.
Okay. I think I'll be honest with you. I think the fact that you aren't already trying to connect those dots with these multiversal splits is what is making this confusing as fuck right now. Like this reminds me of, Kristian, even your concerns, not to dive into that, but like why you ultimately didn't always love, like you didn't love Last Jedi and things got really sloppy, is it definitely felt like we're not all on the same page here. And so it is very possible that there's something that we're not seeing. And there are definitely cookie crumbs that they've already left as to what's coming. Now America training at Hermitage with Wong and all that, it's very clear that's another member of the Young Avengers that's coming. We're going to get a Young Avengers. They have not hidden it. They've put it as plain as day that that's going to happen at this point. But yeah, that you have explained too many different ways that the multiverse exists without finding the through line for all of them. And that's what's kind of bothering me right now.
And did you hear Feige at the red carpet? He said that the moment with Kang was the reason like some of these spells didn't work. And he was verbally explaining things, but we need a movie to retroactively show all this. And I think it needs to be sooner than later, because I like that right now everything feels so different. I love that Eternals feels different than this, feels different than Shang-Chi. Yeah, I love that. But if you're leading to something, it needs to like have a middle ground. We need a movie that gives us kind of like, here's a little bow so we can build to Secret Wars. We just need to put it together. You're
going to get me on board when it comes to multiverse stuff and all that. As I mentioned, I'm way into multiverse things and parallel universes and all that way before Marvel was doing it, and way before all these things were doing it, right? So the beginning of this movie, when Ponytail Strange and America are going through their thing, and then he wakes up in the dream, many times over, I've talked about dreams maybe being parallel universes and reading theories about and all that. So I love the explanation of it, and I thought they were going to dive deeper into that. And I like the and that's something, again, another positive is this idea of dreamwalking, be able to take your consciousness from here and transfer it into a consciousness into that parallel universe was great. I just thought it just kind of lost sight after a little bit.
And that would have been a really cool moment with any of those multiversal Illuminati too. One of them waking up and realizing that another version of them had been killed, and like you have an Illuminati reveal, you have another moment.
Right. That's true.
I think that would have been dope. I also, as you were mentioning the dreamwalking, I would have loved to have seen, other than scaring the boys, obviously, I would have loved to have seen Wanda realize the damage she was doing to herself. Like to see when she does, like obviously Strange does it to a corpse. So like, you know, if maybe he had like lost a hand or something, like maybe if, like all of a sudden he starts to a robot, like imagine you've possessed this Wanda multiple times, and like there's no way that you sort of feel some of the backlash, or you're feeling some sort of emotional resonance in the same way that she tortured all those people in Westview. You know what I'm saying? It would have been cool to see that that's affecting her too. But
the question also is, how long was Ponytail Strange rotting for? Because it seemed like they weren't gone that long. He's already like a full skeleton corpse.
I mean, he wasn't embalmed. He was pretty much just rotting. I think you go quick when you're just under some rocks. I don't know. I'm not a scientist.
Yeah, I'll let that one go.
That said,
I'm one of the scientists myself.
I did love the transformation, the first Wanda dreamwalking scene where she's walking to the house and she breaks the fourth wall slightly. Mm-hmm. That horror stuff. Again, all the stuff I didn't expect to like. I love the horror stuff for me.
Yeah, the Carrie moment when she's got the Ultron oil on her face and she's walking through like all that. I mean, because that was the imagery alone of that kind of Carrie moment. Worked great.
The Illuminati stuff as an isolated event worked great. Yeah. Like visually, I loved seeing those powers. I loved seeing those characters as an isolated moment.
Yeah. And what about Chiwetel Ejiofor? We haven't really talked about him, you know, like, so like all of that. I think that it's funny because Strange mentions how he's like, you know, in my universe, you've always wanted to kill me. And it's like, I never really picked that up in the first Doctor Strange that he always wanted to kill him.
Post credits.
It was after, but even then he was never really against Strange.
He was pissed.
His beef was with the Ancient One.
Yeah,
his beef was never with Strange. So
it definitely felt like the comic book character got mixed with the movie character without really describing it. Like as far as Doctor Strange's relationship.
Well, especially because we didn't see Mordo again to see where because it felt like a big jump to me. Yeah. Like it genuinely felt like a large jump from Strange, you be doing stuff a little weird, man, to man, I hate the Ancient One, to like, I did want to whoop your ass. Like I you know what I mean? Like it just, there was no, that's,
you know what I would have
that's
loved?
What we're,
You land this movie and you have it be revealed that the Doctor Strange, the one we thought was ours, we've been following this whole time, isn't, and that erases all of our problems. he goes back to his Earth, and there's one slight difference, like water is purple, and we're like, oh, that's not been our Earth. And then then our Doctor Strange wakes up and like realizes there's multiverses. Boom, we have no continuity issues, we have no problem with the characterization, we have no problem with tie-ins. Wanda makes sense, everything's fine.
Well, the last thing we'll get into before we start taking the questions, and so this will be the last opportunity to throw in super chats before we get into it, is Rachel McAdams, right? In general, so the character of Christine, who in the first movie we all agree, great actress who was underused in the first movie. However, I think that character served the purpose she was supposed to serve in that first movie. It's just it's a strange thing that you have Rachel McAdams in there, because it's like there's only so much you can use Christine, because of I think they covered everything that they needed to cover in that first movie to set him up. But it doesn't change the fact, just like, well, you just got a really great actress and she really isn't doing much. She does a lot in this movie, except it's not our Christine that's doing it. It's the other Christine that's doing it, because the Christine that we've met gets married. We see her in that scene. That's it. We find out once again it didn't really work out in all these different universes. They don't work out, but she becomes a very strong character in this other multiverse, and she helps him out and she travels with them and she does that. And I loved their dynamic and I loved that angle, and I'm glad she had more to do.
That last scene they have together, that relationship that's formed where they're both not each other's other and they still love each other because their love is transcending multiverses. I loved that. Like, I think that scene of dialogue and the scene where he talks about his sister are the two closest things we got to emotional arcs. And so, like, those are highlights. And I also love that Rachel McAdams got to be the first one to say Baxter, like the Baxter Foundation. Like, I love that she got a big comic book moment as well as a lot of really good emotional resonance. So, yeah, I enjoyed her here.
No, I did too. No, real quick. I mean, I enjoyed it too. I enjoyed seeing that even with him loving Christine over across the multiverse, that like there are problems with the two of them across the board, and a lot of it having to do with Strange's egos. Like some things don't change in that regard. So I thought that was super, super cool. I had one other thought that has completely slipped. So if it comes back,
it comes back.
Yeah.
All right. So don't put any more super chats in there, guys, because we're not going to be able to get to them. I'm just going to read the ones that we got now. There's a lot of them, and we thank you. And we're going to talk about maybe there's some things that we didn't talk about. So Galaxy Geeks, was it strange to you that they had characters basically from What If and not be the character from What If? So we covered that. Also love the show and live is fun. So we did cover that. Yeah, it was weird to me, and I wish that they would have done a little bit more with What If.
Any like moment of cohesive tie-in that made it feel like it is as important as they implied it would have been nice. And also just like the multiversal feel, or like I said, end it where none of it's included because it's a different Strange than ours, and then you got the option to do both. But yeah, I noticed.
All right, so Chips Bewick, thank you, Chips, for the $9.99 super chat. Do you think enough time was spent developing Wanda and Vision's romance? It's been hollow, too short. Grief was hard to take, but movie was good. To Winston's cameo, look, it's like candy. What does that mean? Do I know what that means?
No, I'm not sure what that means, but that's okay.
Okay. So when it comes to it's the Vision, yeah, I think Vision and Wanda's romance was set up pretty well, especially in WandaVision. I thought that all the stuff that they played in there, I thought worked really well. I thought that it was pretty heartbreaking that he didn't really realize that he was not alive anymore, and there was and by the way, there was a horror element in WandaVision a few different times, like some creepy imagery a couple different times in WandaVision that carried over that I thought was pretty relevant to all this. So, but I thought so.
I think what you're talking about the moment where like she's talking to Vision, all of a sudden she looks and he's like, like because he's the corpse. And no, I agree. I the only thing that I get kind of what they're saying, I know they kind of did it a little bit over the movies, but the most you really got of them is them making the food in Civil War and then them in Infinity War right before they get attacked by Corvus Glaive and Proxima Midnight. I wish we had I agree, flushed it out just a baby bit more, but we were already at the end of phase 3. Like, what are you going to do? You know what I mean? You kind of had to go as quickly as you can.
All right. Here's the next one here. This is from Famous Thanos. I think I might have missed this one, but I like the movie. I feel like they did Professor X dirty. I didn't like the way they just offed him with the neck snap. What'd you guys think? Yeah, we talked about that one also. I don't know. He went out a little fast for me, and like he didn't really. I mean, I get it. Showed how it was supposed to show how powerful Wanda has become, that she can take out all of these people. But I would have liked to seen Professor X put up a little bit more of a fight.
Just like with the multiverse, I could have used one more in Mind's Eye scene. Yeah. Like, you've got Infinite Mind, and like he's stronger than that. No matter what, if Wanda's stronger, you still have that. Also, it would have been a really good time to hint at, in my universe, we know each other. In my universe, right. Like, you're a mutant. Like, you don't need that dialogue, but something.
It's also the fact, Coy, that when we see him dealing with her in like House of M, like Wanda's still doing Wanda things, but Professor X is holding his own and like actually helping regulate her from time to time.
It felt like a heavyweight fighting a featherweight. They should have both been welterweights. There should have been like an actual fight.
Yep. All right, let's see. So the next one here is Maveth the Reaper. Wanda's my favorite comic character and the MCU, but they made her so
OP, overpowered.
At the expense of the other characters. How does Reed give up? You guys, a lot of abbreviations here. BB ability. How did this group take that's a great point. I mean, Wanda's powerful, but like but how did they all take out that? Because I guess they had Strange with them also.
Yeah, but Strange can't take out Wanda. Like, Wanda takes out herself. At the end of the movie, nobody beats Wanda. Wanda beats Wanda. Wanda decided she'd gone too far. Like,
America was sort of doing it.
Well, she mentally stopped her.
But I'm talking about what this guy's saying. What Maveth is saying is that this Illuminati didn't put up hardly any fight. Maybe Captain America and Captain Marvel a little bit, but they didn't put up any fight. And this is the team that took out Thanos, and they didn't really hurt Wanda at all. So I don't know.
Yeah, that definitely is a thing, because we didn't see, obviously the moment was cool because it's a comic book image, but we didn't really get to see how they worked as a team, because all we really got was the arrogance, which is important to distinguish, but I didn't feel that cohesive team dynamic. Good point.
Sorry, my thing was muted. Just to remind, I see people still putting in super chats. As much as I appreciate it, don't do it.
I also realized what they're talking about. I thought people were talking about Cameo, like the web servers. They're talking about Cameo, the band, like the funk band. They're saying that my mustache.
Oh, okay. There you go. So perfect. Don't put any more super chats because we can't get to them, and I don't want you guys to not get your questions in. That would be crappy. DJPYBK. If 616 Doctor Strange creates the Scarlet Witch Accords, who will be in the Superhero Council? Who would be your 616 version of Illuminati post Endgame? All right, that was specifically for Coy and Winston.
I'm gonna lean into Coy on this one, man. I'm gonna lean into Coy on this one.
Yeah.
So basically, you're saying our universe is Illuminati. I would include the upcoming Namor from Black Panther. I think that'd be a good way to bring in some arrogant intelligence while also bringing in a new character. I think you're going to need Xavier to make the mutants represented, which we haven't met yet, so you can't do the Illuminati yet in the 616. I would include, I kind of like the idea of our tactician being Rhodey. I think an Iron Man represented, but having it be Rhodey because he's so military minded and tactical. I would then include, as far as because they're all mentally powerful. So Xavier, Doctor Strange, I feel like he's a kind of a staple. Namor, we haven't met yet. And then we always need like a fifth and sixth. What do you got, Winston? Who we finishing off with?
I am still probably putting Cap in there if Chris Evans wants to make little cameos like that, because
he did.
No, remember, he didn't die. He just was like, I'm old now. I'm not a superhero. I don't fight battles. He just was like, take the shield. I'll see you later.
You're thinking he's like 97 doing just fine somewhere?
I genuinely feel it's just a situation where he would totally talk and be on that council to be like, let's figure shit out, but he wouldn't be in the field anymore. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I like that. And then let's say Bruce Banner.
Bruce Banner. There you go. All right, let's get to the next one here. This is from Haskell 420, our buddy Ed. Hey, gang, I saw it twice. First in Dolby, which was amazing, as was the Top Gun Maverick clip and Avatar teaser. I liked it overall, even with its issues. Well, thank you, Ed. Yeah, a lot of people are kind of saying that.
I liked it.
Yeah, a lot of people the same thing.
Same thing for me, too. I think I was just going to say, Kristian, I think the thing that's so funny is that people hear someone giving critique or being negative about something, and they just assume that they're like, fuck all this. I don't think any of the three of us have said, yo, this movie is trash. I think we've said we got some problems, but we enjoyed it. And I stand by it that this should be seen in the theaters.
It's a movie.
I also think this is the first time the three of us have all felt the B range on a movie, because we usually talk about movies we love. It's rare we get to talk about a movie that we have critique of. So I think we leaned a little heavier just because it's new.
Agreed. All right, back to Haskell. All of us have liked, loved, and cared about these characters over the years, but in a way, they felt like hollow characters, if you know what I mean. I do know what you mean. I just think that they weren't. It was that, and that was where my big issue with the substance, style over substance, comes from. It's that you cannot deny that there's a lot of like, wow. Like I saw it I brought a buddy of mine to see it, and he's a Raimi head, and he was like, "This is like peak Raimi." Agreed. This is some of Raimi's best stuff. But very telling of what Coy just said, when it comes, he didn't even watch WandaVision.
Wanda.
So that I think to me is pretty crucial to get all the character stuff.
And I know a lot of people have mentioned, this was kind of shooting simultaneously, but again, why wouldn't you have then had not just here's some notes, have a sit down with Jacques, or I don't know how to pronounce her name. I know Jacqueline, like sit down and
know where it's going.
Or even see a rough cut of the beginning. You know what I'm saying? Like that doesn't make sense.
Yeah, it doesn't. All right, let's carry on. Senior Nerd, once again, very generous super chat. Thank you, Charlize Theron. Finally, be a superhero would be a dream come true. She was a superhero if you look at Hancock, but the introduction should have been better. She didn't even introduce herself as Clea.
Clea.
Yeah.
I mean, I've never heard it. I've only read it, but I think it's clear.
Right.
Charlize Theron in the MCU is a big win. Yeah, it's a massive win. She's great, and she has just become cooler over the years. So it's great to have her in, and she's got such a interesting career, because she could be in these movies, whether it's like a monster or first thing I ever saw her in was Devil's Advocate. That's where I first remember her. She can be in these movies like this.
Same.
And she can do that. And then she can jump into a Fast and Furious movie, or she can do something like Atomic Blonde, and she's very versatile.
Did you see that Seth Rogen rom-com she did? It was incredible.
She's great in that too. So,
she's so
The Long Shot.
Yeah. And like Mad Max Fury Road, like she's such a boss, man. And like her career's only gotten better, and that is not always the case once you were that successful in the 90s.
No, it's not easy. It's not easy to do that, and she's continuously finding new ways to do it. So I'm excited to see her in the MCU as well. Russell Amador. Kind of bummed the way the Illuminati somehow handled Thanos, but Wanda wiped the floor with him. I get it, more powerful being, but John is fantastic, was used to show how powerful Wanda was. Yeah, he was, and I do think that what they accomplished in that little dialogue, and why I say she's become so corrupted, because when it's pretty chilling when he's talking about his family, and she's like, good, they'll have somebody else. Because you're going to be
such a good line. There's so many great like zingers from Wanda, not even zingers, but like fuck, that's cold, and that was definitely one of them.
That was a big one. So, all right, keep moving on here from Ismael Montoya. I hope I said that right. If Wanda had to obtain her power from America C in order to travel the multiverse, how the hell did she destroy all the dark holes of the universes? Coy?
Theoretically, they are connected, because as she's a Nexus being, it's a Nexus item. It's something that connects the universes. It's something that's universal, since all the universes have them. And I imagined it kind of like the Book of Ashanti was in that world between worlds. I think the Darkholds are all connected outside in the world. So destroying one to the level that she did, probably atomically, destroyed all of them. I also think that red flash you see right as the mountain crushes is her leaving. So she might have just like bamfed out of there. She's not dead. But like, I think when she left, she made sure that all of the... No, I don't think she's dead.
It's Elizabeth Olsen, I thought, was over it.
I think Elizabeth Olsen is script to script now. I think she's got that Oscar Isaac contract where it's like, let me read this first.
She's like a wrestler, like she's like John Cena or Stone Cold. You bring him in like WrestleMania.
You let me know how this. Yeah, and then like she gets to decide, which I think is great, because she's more than earned the right to be like, let me check this first.
Just the whole series. Anybody who does the whole series, yeah. All right, AFAL. $20 super chat. Thank you so very much. What's up from Utah? How many more movies do you guys think we will have until the big storyline starts picking up? I'm enjoying the multiverse stuff, but I'm also worried the momentum might start to slow down. I understand that concern. And that is the big question. Like, what is the big storyline right now? Because I thought the big storyline would combine with what we learned in Loki to this and What If and Eternals, but none of it is meshing so far yet. Am I wrong?
I think the big story is Kang.
Yeah, but
Well, why not bring him in?
Yet, for the same reason that if you remember, you don't even really get an inkling of Thanos until the end of Avengers.
Yeah,
and we haven't hit an Avengers level threat yet. We haven't had that combined effort yet, and that's why I'm saying I genuinely think that moment is the Young Avengers. I don't know when we're going to make that turn, but again, you introduce Kate Bishop, you introduce both of Wanda's boys, you introduce America Chavez, who's now training herself, you introduced Elijah Bradley. Like, you have introduced all these Young Avengers, and it's coming.
Everybody's saying Secret Wars is what it is.
I mean, I think Secret Wars is going to be kind of I think midway is Young Avengers leading to Secret Wars. I think we're a ways out from Secret Wars, but I think that's going to be the giant Infinity War Endgame culmination. Yeah. But I do think on the way there, we're going to get Young Avengers. And I do think we need a big enough event to introduce Kang to that scale, because we've also not met Kang. We've only met the one who remains, which is a version of Kang. So when we get to Kang, it's got to feel scopy.
I want to watch Loki again, because now, after all the stuff that was set up with Multiverse, all the stuff that was set up with the different versions and the different, like, it makes a lot more sense. Anyway, Mike Joyce with, again, 1999 super chat. Thank you so much, Mike. I think Elizabeth Olsen gave a fantastic performance. I agree. Where would you rank her among the Marvel villains, both performance-wise and as a villain overall? Okay, so this is an interesting question, because performance-wise, up there in the top. Development-wise, not in the top. Because it was kind of like, if you tell a great actress or actress and say, hey, we need you to do this, but why? That doesn't make sense. I don't care. You need to do it. And then that person just nails it. That's the performance of the actor, right? I just don't like the way that it was just thrust upon us that she's now the villain. Even someone like, I still think Killmonger and Thanos are the two best.
Yeah, I agree.
Yep.
I think we've kind of got the opposite of Loki with Wanda, where it's like we went from villain to hero to villain, but like with Loki we had the time, whereas Wanda we had a whole show, but then they skipped some steps. Sorry, Winston, didn't mean to cut you off.
You're fine. I think the only other thing that brings it down for me is we don't know ultimately what universe she would have picked, but the fact that she then kind of fixates on the one where she keeps possessing Wanda. Why is it that you're not more focused on finding some of your boys that don't have a mom? You know what I'm saying? That Wanda's the one that died and Vision survived, and then you just plug yourself into that one. You know what I mean? I don't know.
So the performance I'm all about. She's
was
right
there.
She's
Killed
up there in the conversation with Thanos, Killmonger, Michael Keaton's Vulture, like the greats. But as far as the rationale behind it, it's a little harder without those steps 7 and 8 that I'm talking about.
This is why I don't do live.
What do you got?
Kristian, it's just a movie. Really? I thought people were really running around in space going to the multiverse.
I've been trying to meet Reed Richards this whole time for nothing. Wait, I can't find Dr. Reed Richards in our reality? This guy just saved me so much time. So much time.
Thanos didn't do anything for 10 years. Remember? I know. But when... All right.
Yeah, don't read the regular live. I started to, and I was like, these people.
Forget it. Senior Nerd, over under 20%. John Krasinski is returning as Reed Richards, as well as directing Fantastic Four. See, that's a tricky question. I'm going to give you the over 20% that he's directing. I'm going to give you the under 20 that he's going to be in it. What do you think? So over under 20% that he's going to be directing and starring in Fantastic Four.
I think if he stars, he directs, because I think he wants to play in a bigger wheelhouse. I think when he talks about directing, he's often been like, he loves His Quiet Place and the things he's done, but I think he wants to go scope. And I think that's the only way he'd get the freedom that he'd want, because you got to entice someone of that caliber. So I think they might make it a thing. And then, like, I don't know if that Emily Blunt's been very outspoken that she doesn't want to do it, but I think the only way she's Sue Storm is if she gets to work with her hubby on set for a year.
Here's why, because he's 41, 42, something like that, in that range. Like that. They want Fantastic Four to be a staple of this universe for a long time. I think you start with a younger Fantastic Four. I don't think you start with a 42-year-old.
They tried that and it was bad. Like, I mean, look at Fan Four Stick.
Wait, yeah, but Fox tried that.
Yeah, but the characterizations don't work young, I don't think. I think it's one of the family. It's Marvel's first family. Like, they already have kids.
32 years old, young.
You're just shaving a decade, gotcha.
He's 32 years old. If you look at his first movie, if his first movie comes out in 2 or 3 years from now, say 2 years, right? And how old is he? I don't know. I think let's see. Hey Siri.
I definitely think they're doing 2024.
Let's see. Hey Siri, how old is John Krasinski? Thanks for ignoring me, you stupid asshole. John
Krasinski is 42.
42. All right. So let's say that he's 45, but 44, 45 by the time the first movie comes out. And then by the next movie, he's close to 50. If they do a second one or they start doing these, it's a lot of time to be able to, and plus the fact he wants to direct more, do more things. I don't think he does.
But he doesn't have to do any physicality because his power set is so CGI heavy. It's like Ryan Reynolds, like he's 50.
But you still gotta keep the physique. Like you gotta,
Deadpool's different. It doesn't. I'm not telling you he can't be 50 years old and do a superhero movie. Of course you can. What I'm saying is to start the Fantastic Four off where they're gonna like Kevin Feige has been wanting to bring the Fantastic Four in for a long time, and to be able to bring in a Fantastic Four as this brand new, as the new, like if they set it up right and they hit it the way that they want to hit it, and they can have them around for 10, look at what they did for like Tony Stark. Tony Stark was around for a long time.
Yeah.
So they had him around from like 2009 until 2019, 10 years, whatever it was. So they do the same thing. I mean, sure, you could have him be 55, 56 by the time it ends his run. But I think, I don't know.
You think to go a decade younger and play it that way?
Yeah, I think you go younger.
I like Rahul Kohli from all the Mike Flanagan stuff for Reed, and he's about like mid-30s. I think that would work.
The only thing that's interesting, and this is the part where I don't love that they don't bring Loki into this. We didn't get any like people variants. You know what I'm saying? We maybe got that they went on a different path. But you had the same actor that played Black Bolt.
Yeah, I said that earlier because they did that with Tobey Maguire and Andrew Garfield.
Yeah.
But everybody else was just Benedict Cumberbatch every time.
Well, and but that, I guess that's where I almost feel like they are nodding to us that they're probably going to use Krasinski because again, Lashana Lynch just got the powers instead of
Carter,
Brie Larson. Like, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, maybe. Well,
even the Inhumans universe that no one acknowledged until now.
All right, Naman Idris, how excited are you for the future prospect for Franklin Richards in the MCU now that we have confirmation he's in the multiverse? Is that Reed Richards?
That's Reed's kid. And he is Omega level mutant that literally can warp reality however the fuck he wants.
Really?
So,
okay.
Yeah, so he basically would be a Wanda level villain hero, like to compete with that. And what's interesting about him is he's kind of the inverse of Onslaught. So you got some really fun X-Men stuff to play with. You got some universe creation, and in the comics right now, he's actually depowered because it's finite. Like he overused his powers, and now he's a regular person in a family of people with powers, and it's this really cool like existential crises of my whole family is OP and I'm just a kid.
All right, we got a couple more here. Let's and we're gonna go. Ben Owlett. I think the mid-credits scene should have been the final scene of the movie. The mid-credits should have been Strange finding the 616, Fantastic Four, and X-Men. That could have worked.
I would have liked that dream thing to, show the characters again, and I think that any of that would have worked. But I also feel like the credit scenes just weren't for me because I'm not a Sam Raimi guy as much as others.
I think the one thing that's driving me crazy is how the hell you going to introduce the king of the Inhumans and essentially the master, not really, but like the master of mutants, and Strange doesn't go, wait a minute, what's an Inhuman and what's a mutant? Like that never, like for half a second crosses his mind.
Well, I mean, that's why I think that we're going to get I think we're getting Fantastic Four in Ant-Man 3 because Kang's in it. And I think we're going to find out that the Fantastic Four are trapped in that little city in the quantum realm. I think in Quantumania, we get the Fantastic Four. I think as soon as Ant-Man, I think that's actually the reason they moved it up is because it ties into Loki. So I think that's all coming real soon. And I think they want the first time mutants is uttered to be like such a thing. They didn't want it as a moment, but it definitely like as a fan went like, ugh.
Right. King Dingaling. All right, that's great actually. The movie has obvious flaws, but that Captain Carter death was amazing, and Wanda staring at camera legit scared me. It was pretty great. I'll legit be pissed if Krasinski is a one-off. This movie is the Last Jedi of MCU. I don't know. I'm not gonna go that far. Say it because I don't know how it's not. I don't think it negates as much as Last Jedi did in my opinion, but I don't think it's still. I haven't seen the vitriol come out for this movie. I've seen people not like it, but I haven't seen it. I mean,
it's not as polarizing. I don't think.
Last Jedi split up families,
and it almost made me and Christian's friendship because I think Last Jedi is way better.
You're out of your mind. Last Jedi is way better than this movie. I mean, I don't know. It's different. It's a long conversation.
No, Next week on the
Wanda.
big thing, Corey and Kristian debate.
That's right. This was supposed to be a Doctor Strange movie, not a Wanda movie. This was a movie where he was supposed to shine, and he didn't. All about Wanda. I mean, I think that what they could have done is called this movie, because I do think that he had a lot to do in this movie, and I think that his relationship with Christine and him trying to figure out of not being the same type of Doctor Strange as everything else. So all of that, I think that is there, but I do think because of, as I mentioned before, with the multiverse, how it wasn't really focused. I think you could have called this the Darkhold. I think you could have called this
and just made it a Wanda movie, like a Wanda Doctor Strange movie.
Yeah.
Also, this could have been a Wanda Maximoff movie.
It could have been like this, like how Civil War was between. Even though Captain America is Civil War. When you think of Civil War, you do think about Tony and so it's like, because it was called Civil War, it's between the both of them. Yeah,
but you get a pass though, just because obviously the focus of that story was on Cap and Bucky still, and that final piece of him trying to get his friend back and all that kind of. But I agree with you. I think Scarlet Witch and the Darkhold would have probably been a better title than Doctor Strange and the Multiverse of Madness, because it really didn't focus on Doctor Strange, and it really didn't focus on the multiverse. It focused on Wanda and the Darkhold.
Yeah, I just thought it was a little more relevant. All right, Chris. Retzlaff, should this have been called Couple Verse or a Few Verse of Madness? How is many multi more than one? Just busting people's pizza balls of the show. Coy, relax.
I don't know how, anonymous stranger. I don't have that button.
Daryl Stokes at Blurred Lines Entertainment. Anyone lost in the difference between timelines versus universes? Based on the rules set up in Endgame versus the rules in this, wouldn't Cap have caused an incursion? Yeah, I know it's that's what I meant when I said it comes out to be a little confusing. So they've got to set up some more rules and understanding for sure. Chris, let's laugh. Corey, you nailed it. 616 wasn't our universe. Mysterio was the only reference, and that was a made up story. Yeah, true.
Gotcha.
Okay, let's see.
Oh, I have a question. I finally remembered that thought I couldn't.
Yeah.
Hey.
The one thing that threw me off, remember we talked about in the rewatch, they were like, yeah, use the sling ring to travel throughout the multiverses, and that's how you go through all that and blah, blah, blah. And then for them to have America show up and then be kind of confused about the multi. So wait, you're telling me there's actually a multiverse? Like, I was like, hold on. We were so excited that we were actually like, they thought this one out, and then all of a sudden it felt like they were retconning or forgot.
Right.
And I did not love that.
Right. That they've been setting it up since Doctor Strange 1. Yeah.
Also, yeah, she stole a sling ring because she couldn't use her powers. I thought that was clever. But then when they were like, what's a multiverse? I was like, 6 years ago, we discussed your knowledge of the multiverse.
Senior nerd, despite the many flaws, I had tons of fun watching Doctor Strange 2. You can tell Sam Raimi had a ball making the movie, and I hope he comes back for 3. I don't disagree with that. I think you could absolutely tell that he was having fun making this movie. There's no doubt.
And I'm happy he's happy.
Yes. AJ Bristol with the last one here. So we all know Secret Wars is coming out, and that's when we're going to get Fantastic Four and X-Men, or will they come somewhere else? Coy, what do you think?
I think Fantastic Four gets teased or even shown in the upcoming Ant-Man and the Wasp, thanks to Kang and the Quantum Mania. I do think they're trapped in the quantum realm. I do think they might even be set in the 60s. I could see them being a fish out of water story. And then as far as X-Men, I think they need to come before Secret War, because Secret War needs to use them. And if you're introducing them and using them in Secret War, that's going to be a real mess. So I think what you do is you have a few solo movies as well as a few shows, and you have X-Men kind of take the Avengers spot as the frontline team of the universe. And then by the time you get to Secret War, they've already had like 5 different properties, so you're invested in them. So I would use them before Secret War, but then have their big moment, much like Avengers Infinity War, be in Secret War, F4 as soon as Ant-Man.
All right, this is actually the last one here. Jonathan Peck, over under 50% that Sam Raimi will come to do Doctor Strange 3. I'm going to go under. I think he's going to be doing other things, and I wouldn't be surprised if he winds up doing Spider-Man 4.
I'm going to go under, and I think Spider-Man 4 is more likely.
Yeah.
I think Spider-Man 4, yeah.
Well, that's it. Look, guys, we did it. We did it. We did a live show. We did a live show, and I want to thank everybody who was involved and everybody who watched and everybody who listened. If you're watching this, by the way, on the replay, please comment. like, subscribe, do all that. And if you didn't know this already, I'm going to be smashing myself in the face with a lemon pie. That's only if we get to 50,000 subscribers by June 1st. But you got to subscribe, you got to hit that notification button, and that's how that will happen. I want to thank both Winston and Coy. Gentlemen, thank you so much. It was fun doing a live show with you. Maybe we'll do it again. But that's it. We'll see you guys on Friday as we do Jurassic World. It is what's it called?
Fallen Kingdom.
Fallen Kingdom.
I haven't watched it yet. I'm scared.
Oh, I can't wait to hear. So thank you guys to both of you. We'll check you out and then check out all the stuff that we have going on in this channel. Our Top Gun reviews coming out soon. So, all right, thanks guys. Peace out.